Hello and welcome to the SOFEA Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Smith, and today's guest is Chris, SOFEA's marketing and content assistant, who's come on to share his story about how music has positively affected his mental health. Chris joined SOFEA initially as a volunteer following a challenging relationship breakdown, where he struggled with his mental health and was out of employment for 3 years. Now, Chris is working at SOFEA not only in the media department, but facilitating music sessions for our young people. Chris takes us through his journey of how at some of his darkest moments music filled the void and became a moral compass that helped him interpret the world. Hi Chris.
Hi, you're right, Nick.
Good, thank you. Welcome to the SOFEA Sessions podcast.
Thank you.
It's your first time as a guest, isn't that right?
It is.
Good, well it's lovely to have you on here.
Thanks.
So let's start with some introductions if that's okay. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners and your chosen topic for today?
Certainly. My name's Chris Alderson and I'm the marketing and content assistant at SOFEA, and I'm on SOFEA Sessions to discuss music and mental health.
Amazing. Okay, so what led you to work at SOFEA? Let's start kind of back at the beginning, if you like.
Okay, so in about 2015 I had a complete mental breakdown following the end of a relationship, and after spending over 3 years on the dole, the job centre put me in touch with a group called the Buck Project, and they specialise in helping neurodivergent adults find work. I had quite a few meetings with them so they could understand my mental health problems, and then they could help me find work where my mental health would be taken into account. They recommended this place called SOFEA. I'd never heard of it before, but I thought it might be worth giving a shot because I didn't have anything to lose. And I still remember walking sheepishly into reception in an ill-fitting suit from Asda George and being greeted by Rich, our CEO, who I believe was wearing a hoodie, shorts and flip-flops. That made me thought I'd really blow my chances, so I'd come overdressed, you see. But, thankfully my suit didn't ruin my chances, and I started off working at SOFEA as a volunteer, just doing general office work, that kind of thing. And yeah, I was essentially a volunteer who refused to leave until they paid me to stay.
Very persistent, and it worked.
So once I sort of got my foot in the door, I started working at SOFEA in 2018 as a fundraising assistant, before later being transferred to marketing. My new role meant that I spent more time with the young people when I was gathering content for social media and other promotional work, and over time I noticed that a lot of the learners like music. There's especially one young person called Charlie Bell, who's now gone through our learner program and now works for us as a volunteer, who I noticed appeared to like playing guitar as much as I did. And it was Ruth who sort of nudged me into thinking, well, maybe there's something in that, like maybe you could do small music sessions with any of the kids who are interested. And so I started doing initially just some little music sessions with Charlie, and it sort of organically grew from there, really.
Amazing, that's great. So really, it's nice to see sort of like where you started versus where you are now, and it sounds like you've done various roles within the organisation, but it sounds like you were you coming into the organisation in quite a dark place with your mental health and struggling after a breakup, and then being able to take an opportunity that's given you so much to do, which is amazing to hear. Lots of purpose.
Yeah. It is something I also invite other staff who've been here a while to look over your shoulder and sort of think about where you've come from in terms of where you are now.
Yeah, so it's an amazing reflection. Amazing. So obviously you're here to talk about mental health and music. So what impact has music had on your life?
I think music has impacted just about every aspect of my life. Even when I was young and felt like I wasn't getting satisfactory answers from parents and teachers when I asked them about the world and my place in it, music filled that void. Whereas I can't speak for how other genres of music influence the fans of it, for me, punk music has always formed a kind of moral compass that's helped me interpret the world. I remember a while ago a staff member at SOFEA who was a devout Christian compared my love of music to her faith in terms of how I used it as a guide. Over time it answered the questions I had, as well as giving me a sense of what's okay to do, what's not okay to do, as well as who my friends are and who my enemies are. Well, from a social perspective, music's been life-changing for me. If you get really nerdy about music, you'll probably feel tempted to pick up an instrument at some point, and then if you decide to play in a band, then you're going to make a lot of new like-minded friends. I can barely articulate in words the sensations you get from picking up a guitar, like it being impossible to play at first, then learning a song, then learning a few more, then learning how to write your own, and then performing them live, and to top it all off, have people applaud and cheer for you. I've yet to find anything that beats that experience. And even if you don't play in a band and you enjoy music for the social aspect, you'll probably end up going to go and see other bands play. And in my experience, there's always friends to be made in a circle pit because they're the ones that pick you up after they sent you flying.
It's a good bonding experience, it sounds like.
Well organised craziness.
So why do you think music is so important then in the context of mental health and well-being?
I think for some people at least, music is crucial to their mental health. More sort of casual listeners will sort of listen to sad songs when they're sad or happy songs when they're happy, and both those instances make perfect sense. However, I think if you really sort of have a connection to music and you come across a band or an artist that addresses a situation you're already going through, it gets to such a point that you feel like they wrote it about you and they're playing it to you. That's when it takes on a whole new dimension. I mean, when I first got into alternative music as a teenage mini-mosher, I was already struggling with mental health issues, and it was validating that there was music out there that addressed what it's like to be human. It was certainly a change from the radio fodder that addressed what it was like to cruise the Santa Monica Boulevard in a convertible. But in my opinion, while the music I was listening to at the time recognised how I was feeling, it didn't really offer a meaningful way to help. Because I got into punk music entirely by accident, but what I noticed in comparison to some of the alternative music I was listening to when I was a young teenager, that the lyrical content was various shades of, oh, life is awful, no one could possibly understand kind of thing. While a lot of punk lyrics, at least in my opinion, comes more in the form of life is awful, but you're not alone, and as long as you keep slamming in the circle pit with everyone else, you never will be.
Yeah.
Which to me made it stand out from other sort of alternative forms of music, and the punk community broadly puts a lot of emphasis on unity and togetherness, as well as being a kind of giant warehousing project for people who are too weird to be accepted into other subcultures, all of which can be very alluring to someone who's young and struggling to fit in.
Amazing. That's a really lovely reflection. Actually, I've never thought about music in that way, and you've described it beautifully in terms of how one genre of music can be really validating in that, that almost like there's no point, this is the end of the world, everyone hates me, blah, 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 that sort of negative mindset.
Yeah,
but actually how another genre can almost do that whilst providing a message of hope.
Yeah, it was good to hear music that sort of addressed the human condition, but as I alluded to, it didn't really sort of make me feel positive about my feelings being validated. But in my opinion, punk does that, at least for me, better than any other music can. So
that's amazing. Well, you're obviously very passionate about music and also music at SOFEA. So do you have kind of future plans for how you'd like to see music at SOFEA?
Oh, I've got lots of plans. I mean, on a small scale, something I've noticed with interacting with the youngsters is a lot of them are into hip hop and drill, which isn't entirely my wheelhouse. In my mind, like, they're missing out, because it's no good offering them a guitar or a bass to play or drums, because it is simply not what they're interested in. But if I had like a mic booth and some mixing decks, then it would be a learning experience for everyone, myself included. In conjunction to that, I'd like to perhaps go over to Milton Keynes and do a bit of a demonstration there for the kids, just to see if there's anyone who is curious about playing an instrument, never actually got the chance to as much as hold one. And now they get that chance, and then it blossoms from there. So on a more sort of medium scale, I mean, I'd still like to have a music room built, and I think the various heads of departments would like a music room to be built as well, so I don't interrupt their meetings all the time. But obviously, there's a lot of red tape, and yeah, that might take a little while to come to fruition. But what could come to fruition, at least in my opinion, and this is something I joked with Alex the chef about, in that. If he handles the food, I'll handle the music, and we'll have a SOFEA festival.
That sounds really fun.
Generally, I just try to be an encouraging force to these young people, because I know just how unsupportive some music teachers can be. During my own time at school, I got an incredibly mixed bag, and from some who essentially told me that I should probably just stop what I'm doing, compared to others who let me and my terrible friends practice in the music room after school. And my takeaway from teaching these kids, you have to go at their pace. Like, there is no other tempo that will work. But I found that by letting them go at entirely their own pace, it helps solidify something that I've always concluded about musical instruments, in that they're not going to yell at you, they're going to yell with you.
I really like that. It's really cool.
Because, if you're a teenager and you've had a bad day and you want to stomp and rave around in your room, like, pick up a guitar, man.
Yeah.
Like, fantastic stress relief. least in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I can imagine. So yeah, because the last thing you're going to want as a teenager if you're stressed is to be yelled at, but actually, to have something that can yell with you and share your frustration is amazing. Fantastic. So I like to ask all of my guests one final question, and I thought my final question should be very topical for you. So if you were able to recommend one album or artist to the listeners, what would it be and why?
Incredibly good question, and days of deliberation later I have an answer. If it was any band that I'd recommend to anyone, especially through this prism of mental health, it'd have to be the Ramones, the classic New York punk bands, most famous during the 70s. Mainly for the first reason was that they made me realise that being neurodivergent and socially anxious, like I am, won't disqualify you from being in a band. The singer of the Ramones, Joe Ramone, famously had very acute obsessive compulsive disorder. And I saw interviews with him, his mum and his brother, who were genuinely concerned at the time about the sort of quality of life that someone like Joey could expect during the 1970s. But when they saw him on stage and witnessed him literally transform from this meek and vulnerable individual into the lead singer of a punk band, completely in command of the stage and singing his heart out, that was incredibly inspiring to me. Secondly, because the Ramones were also the band that convinced me that I might just be able to play the guitar. Because what makes the Ramones so incredible from a musicianship point of view, and perhaps arguably a lack thereof, is that their songs are incredibly simple. So if you're a novice musician, they're a fantastic place to start. The first time you look at a song on guitar and you get this sudden realisation of, I can play this, your life won't be the same. If you're just starting out on guitar, bass and drums, the Ramones are the band for you. Even Kirk Hammett, the lead guitarist in Metallica, said that the Ramones played a big part in giving him the confidence to pick up a guitar. And also, I'd have to recommend the Ramones because I like a lot of punk bands who have a bit infamous having a bit of a grating sound, let's say. I've heard the Ramones described as what would happen if the Strokes didn't learn how to play their instruments. So yeah, if you're curious and want something like a little bit less sort of brash compared to other punk bands, I'd highly recommend the Ramones' self-titled first album and their live album, Loco Live.
Amazing. Thank you for the recommendation. I can always pop a little note in the show notes as well, just to, if anybody does want to give it a bit of more of an explore. But thank you for coming on today. I feel like, we've worked together for years now, and I always knew that you enjoyed music, and I always knew it was a hobby, but I think I misunderstood actually, or I didn't have the awareness of how deeply ingrained it is within you and how important it is to you and your life and your journey so far. And I think, I just want to thank you for sharing that with me, because actually it's given me a new perspective on music and how it can support you. I'm excited for this SOFEA festival. That sounds really fun.
Well, it depends if all the grown-ups in the room sign off on it, I guess.
We'll get the grown-ups to sign off. But no, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
To hear a snippet of your story.
All right, cheers.
A massive thank you to Chris for sharing his honest and inspirational story, and for reminding us all how life-changing music can be, through dark and the happier times. Music can be a guide for us to navigate this complex world and the emotions we experience. If you would like to support any of the project Chris mentioned in the episode, please do email us at wellbeing@sofea.uk.com, or you can contact us via the website. As always, please do like, share and subscribe, and a link to all of Chris's music recommendations will be in the description box below.